Hejak velkomna. Jag glad att få vara här idag och presentera för om Sveriges utbildningssystem. På den här första bilden ser ni titeln på presentationen. Sweden Education System. Och under den finns en liten undertitel. Introduction to Education Studies. Under den här presentationen kommer Roman 6 att titta närmare på hur det svenska utbildningssystemet uppbyggt. Vilka nyckelfaktorer som påverkar det. Och lite om vad som gör det unikt. Så, let oss börja och dyka in I detta spännande ämne. Hello everyone. Just a quick update on assignment marks. They will be released very soon, so please keep an eye out for those. If you notice any missing marks for your assignments, make sure to report them after the lecture on Wednesday. All guest lectures are now available on Moodle, and remember, they are assessed in the exam as well as being an engaging part of the course. Next week, we have the catch-up test for those who are eligible, and the candidates have already been emailed with the details. The official exam is scheduled for the 25th of May at 9:00 a.m., so make a note of that date. For your module evaluation, which contributes to your student QPA, there's a link you need to click on. Just follow the link with the lecturer's name. Regarding assignment feedback, you'll get insights to help improve your work, and the exam scope will be outlined so you know what topics to focus on. Finally, I'll be sharing some important announcements soon, so stay tuned and stay engaged. So let's explore the education systems in these African countries. In Egypt, the education system has traditionally been state-controlled, with a focus on rote learning and exam-based assessment. However, this system faced significant challenges, which led to widespread dissatisfaction among students and parents. In 2011, many students boycotted the system as part of the larger protests that sparked the Arab Spring. They were demanding better quality education, more opportunities, and reforms that addressed their needs. This was a pivotal moment showing how deeply the education system was linked to broader social and political issues. Now, regarding compulsory education in Egypt, it covers primary and preparatory levels, which typically span from ages 6 to 14. This means that children are legally required to attend school during these stages, although enforcement can vary. As for private schools, Egypt has a diverse landscape. There are mainly two types: international schools, which often follow foreign curricula, and Egyptian private schools, which might offer different pedagogical approaches or supplementary programs. This diversity caters to different demographics and preferences. Turning to Botswana, yes, it does have private schools as well, though they are fewer in number compared to Egypt. These private institutions often serve expatriates and wealthier local families, providing alternative curricula and sometimes better facilities. When we compare Egypt, Botswana, and South Africa, we see some interesting similarities. All three countries have a mix of public and private education, and each faces challenges related to access, quality, and equity. They are all working towards improving their systems, though their approaches and levels of progress differ. In my opinion, among these studied African economies, South Africa's education system appears the most progressive, especially considering its efforts toward inclusivity and addressing historical inequalities through policies aimed at transformation. To recap, understanding these different education systems helps us see the broader picture of development across Africa. Each country's approach reflects its unique history, resources, and social priorities, but they all share the goal of providing quality education for their populations. Sweden is a fascinating case when we look at how it approaches this topic. It's known for its innovative policies and progressive stance, which really set it apart. What's especially interesting is how Sweden balances social welfare with economic growth, creating a model that many other countries admire. When we think about the overall theme of this presentation, Sweden exemplifies how integrating social policies with economic strategies can lead to sustainable development. It's a great example of forward thinking, and their approach can offer valuable lessons for other nations aiming to achieve similar goals. Sweden is located in the eastern part of the Scandinavian peninsula, making it a key part of Northern Europe. It's actually the fourth largest country in Europe, which gives you a sense of its extensive land area. With a population of over 9 million people, it's a nation with a rich history and vibrant culture. The capital city, Stockholm, is not only the political center, but also a beautiful city known for its waterways and historic sites. Sweden operates under a constitutional monarchy, meaning it has a monarch who acts as a non-political head of state, but the real power lies within a democratic government framework. An interesting historical figure is King Olaf Skaknunung, who was the first king and converted to Christianity in the 11th century, marking a significant shift in the country's religious landscape. Throughout the 1400s, there were efforts to unite Sweden, Denmark, and Norway, which highlights the regional ambitions of the time. However, this period was also marked by conflict, especially between Sweden and Denmark, with Denmark conquering Sweden in 1520. Later, between 1523 and 1560, under the leadership of Gustav Vasa, Sweden gained independence from Denmark. He was influenced by Martin Luther's teachings, which led to the confiscation of property from the Catholic Church to help pay off Swedish debts. This was a turning point that established the Lutheran Swedish Church, which became the national church. Finally, it's worth noting that Sweden managed to maintain neutrality during both world wars. This stance helped preserve its independence and stability during turbulent times, and it remains a key part of Sweden's identity today. All of these historical events show how Sweden's past has shaped its modern identity as a peaceful, neutral, and progressive nation. In 1911, Sweden took a significant step forward in social policy with the establishment of the old age pension, marking the beginning of a more elaborate structure of welfare legislation. This era of economic prosperity, which was largely supported by Sweden's neutral war policies, allowed the country to develop comprehensive systems for public health, housing, and job security, laying a foundation for the modern welfare state. Fast forward to 1976, after 44 years of socialist rule, Thorbjorn Fälldin came into power, signaling a shift in political direction. Then, in 1982, socialist policies made a comeback with Olof Palme, a prominent figure whose leadership influenced Swedish politics deeply. Tragically, Olof Palme was assassinated on February 28, 1986, an event that shocked the nation and had a lasting impact on the political landscape. In 1991, the Social Democrats re-emerged stronger, aligning with the European Union, yet Sweden chose to keep the Swedish krona as its currency, maintaining economic independence. Moving ahead to 2006, Fredrik Reinfeldt became the leader of the center-right coalition, marking a new phase in Swedish politics. By 2010, the Swedish Democrats won seats in parliament for the first time, signaling a shift in political dynamics. Interestingly, Reinfeldt even invited the Swedish Democrats to participate in government negotiations, which was quite notable given their controversial stance. Throughout the 20th and into the 21st century, socialism has played a significant role in shaping Swedish politics. Its influence is evident in the development of a robust welfare system and the country's political debates. Understanding this history helps us see how social policies and political changes have intertwined to shape modern Sweden. Let's take a closer look at this table that compares 3 different economic and social systems: capitalism, socialism, and communalism. Starting with ownership, in capitalism, property is privately owned, meaning individuals or companies have control over resources. In socialism, ownership shifts to the state or is held publicly, aiming to manage resources for the collective good. And in communalism, ownership is shared within the community itself, emphasizing shared responsibility and collective stewardship. Moving to the goals of each system, capitalism primarily focuses on generating profit, encouraging innovation and individual success. Socialism, on the other hand, emphasizes equality and social welfare, striving to reduce disparities and promote a fair distribution of resources. Communalism emphasizes cooperation and sustainability, aiming for a balanced relationship between people and their environment, fostering sustainable community living. When we look at the economic models, capitalism features a market-driven economy. Think of supply and demand guiding production and prices. Socialism often employs planned or regulated economies, where the government or planning bodies coordinate economic activity to meet social needs. Communalism tends to rely on local, cooperative economies, small-scale, community-based efforts that promote local resilience and mutual aid. The power structures differ quite significantly too. Capitalism tends to be hierarchical and competitive, with power concentrated among business elites and market forces. Socialism typically has a more centralized or sometimes mixed power structure, with state institutions playing a key role. Communalism advocates for decentralized, democratic power. Decision-making is spread across the community, encouraging participation and shared leadership. Throughout the presentation, the overarching theme is how different systems shape our societies, each with unique approaches to ownership, goals, economy, and power. Recognizing these differences helps us understand the varying visions for a just, sustainable, and equitable future. Så lät oss titta närmare på den svenska utbildningssystemets utveckling. 1842 infördes en fyraårig grundskola som kallades folkskola, vilket betyder folkets skola. Det var ett viktigt steg för att göra utbildning mer tillgänglig för breda lager av befolkningen. Sedan, 1858, började man etablera de första skolorna för de unga barnen, så kallade småskolor, som hade årskurs 1 och 2, och skolan började nu vid SJURs ålder. Det var en viktig förändring för att tidigt få en barn I utbildningssystemet. 1882 uterkades grundskolan med årskurs 5 och 6, vilket innebar att elever nu kunde stanna längre I skolan och få en bredare grundutbildning. Under 1930-talet blev skolgången obligatorisk för SJUR, vilket var ett stort steg mot att säkerställa att alla barn fick en grundläggande utbildning. Sedan på 1950-talet förlängs den obligatoriska skolgången till ett år, och 1972 blev den obligatoriska skolgången 9 år, vilket betydde att barn nu var tvungna att stanna I skolan mellan SJU och 16 år. Efter 3 år I grundskolan, och förutsatt att man hade goda betyg, kunde elever fortsätta till gymnasieskolan, som kallades högre allmänna läroverket. Det också viktigt att nämna att dessa skolor inte var gratis, och de flesta elever kom från välbeställda familjer. Andra elever kunde få stipendier baserade på akademiska prestationer för att kunna delta. Så sammanfattningsvis, visar detta hur det svenska utbildningssystemet gradvis har utvecklats från en begränsad tillgång till en mer inkluderande och obligatorisk utbildning för alla barn, vilket en grundpelare för det moderna samhället. In 1971, we see a significant change with the merging of the fackskola, which was a technical school, with the gymnasium and yrkesskola, a vocational school. This merger resulted in the creation of the gymnasieskola, or the gymnasium school, which marks a key development in the Swedish education system. Going back a bit, in 1949, Swedish schools introduced the Enhetsskola, a unified school system that consisted of 3 stages spread over 9 years. This was an important step towards standardizing education across the country. By 1958, the Enhetsskola was renamed Folkskola, which signified a new phase in its development. Then, in 1962, Folkskola underwent another change and was renamed Grundskola, establishing a 9-year primary school system that provided a stronger foundation for students. Finally, the Grundskola system evolved into the Gymnasieskola, which includes upper secondary education for students aged 16 to 19. This stage is crucial because it prepares students either for university or vocational careers. It's also important to note that a vocational secondary school offers a 3-year program that provides students with basic qualifications needed for specific trades or professions. Overall, these changes reflect Sweden's ongoing efforts to create a more cohesive and flexible education system, accommodating both academic and vocational pathways to better serve students' diverse needs. Let's take a quick look at how Swedish education has evolved over time. Back in 1990, the landscape was quite different. There were very few private schools, and most students attended boarding schools abroad that were primarily funded by tuition, often for diplomatic families. Then, by 1992, we saw a significant shift with the introduction of independent primary and secondary schools that started receiving public funding, making them essentially free schools for students. Moving forward to 2007, the higher education system was restructured into 3 levels: Grundnivå, which is the basic level; Avancerad Nivå, the advanced level; and Forskarnivå, which is the doctoral level. This change aimed to clarify the progression pathways for students and better define academic hierarchies. During this period, there were also important updates to professional and vocational degrees, with new programs in fields like engineering, law, and medicine being introduced. This provided more specialized pathways for students interested in these careers. After completing Gymnasiumskola, students could then apply directly to university, creating a clearer route from secondary education to higher education. By 2008, the number of free schools had grown significantly, reaching around 900, providing more options and increased access for students across the country. However, by 2010, Sweden decided to phase out the free schools system, marking a major policy shift. Overall, these changes reflect a continuous effort to adapt and improve the Swedish education system, balancing public and private roles, and creating clearer structures for students' academic and professional development. Now, looking at this table, we can see the breakdown of schooling levels among 25 to 64-year-olds who completed their education in 2008. Starting with compulsory education, which is the foundation, about 15% of this age group fall into this category. Moving up, nearly half, or 46%, completed their upper secondary schooling. That's a significant portion and shows a strong foundation in more advanced secondary education. Then we have post-secondary education that lasts less than 3 years, accounting for around 14%. This could include shorter tertiary programs or vocational training. Finally, about 22% pursued post-secondary education beyond 3 years, which might be university degrees or similar qualifications. What's important here is to notice the distribution across these levels. It reflects the educational attainment of this cohort and helps us understand the overall skill level and qualification landscape in Sweden. These figures are crucial because they connect directly to the broader themes of workforce skills, economic development, and social mobility. When we consider these numbers, we see how a significant portion has achieved higher levels of education, which can influence productivity and innovation in the country. Let's take a closer look at Sweden's recent school enrollment and completion statistics for 2024 across different levels of education, including compulsory, secondary, and post-secondary education. In 2024, we see that enrollment rates for compulsory education remain very high, close to nearly 100%, which indicates strong participation from young children in the mandatory schooling system. Moving up to secondary education, enrollment rates have also improved compared to previous years, reflecting increased access and possibly better retention strategies within the system. When we examine post-secondary education, the numbers show a steady rise in participation, suggesting that more students are pursuing higher education or vocational training after completing secondary school. Now, let's compare these figures with data from 2008. Back then, enrollment rates in compulsory education were also high, but secondary and post-secondary participation were notably lower. Over the years, we've seen significant growth, especially in post-secondary education, highlighting Sweden's ongoing efforts to promote higher education and lifelong learning. This trend not only demonstrates improvements in access and opportunities, but also aligns with the overall theme of our presentation: how education systems evolve to meet societal and economic needs. In summary, Sweden's education landscape in 2024 shows impressive progress from 2008, especially in secondary and post-secondary levels, reflecting broader societal shifts towards lifelong learning and workforce readiness. Let's take a look at some interesting educational facts. First, women tend to be more educated than men overall. For instance, about 26% of women have completed post-secondary education within 3 years, compared to only 19% of men. This highlights a significant gender gap in higher education attainment. Moving on, in 2010, international students began to be charged fees, which has had an impact on access and diversity in education. Additionally, schools employ various assessment methods to evaluate student learning, including summative assessments that measure overall achievement at the end of a course. When it comes to grading systems, many use the familiar ABCDEF scale, which provides a straightforward way to communicate student performance. And here's an interesting fact. Education involves a variety of approaches and standards, and understanding these differences can help us better appreciate how education systems function globally and locally. All of these points connect to the broader theme of how education evolves and influences society, shaping opportunities and outcomes across genders and borders. The public budget is under increasing pressure to maintain high levels of educational provisions and standards. This means that governments need to find ways to fund quality education without compromising on what students receive. At the same time, we're seeing growing class differences in education, which can lead to unequal opportunities for students from different backgrounds. Addressing this gap is crucial for creating a fair and inclusive system. Globalization adds another layer of complexity. It pushes us to open up education opportunities internationally while also striving to ensure equity across borders. For example, getting paid for studying a PhD or attracting more international students are strategies many countries, including Sweden, are using to stay competitive. However, these opportunities come with challenges. Sweden, for instance, faces the task of balancing increased demand for international students with the need to maintain high-quality education standards. Overall, these issues highlight the ongoing struggle to provide accessible, equitable, and high-quality education in a rapidly changing world. Vocational education is highly valued and relevant across all 3 countries we've studied. It's seen as an important pathway for many students, offering practical skills that can lead directly to employment. Formal education, on the other hand, tends to be state-controlled in these systems, which means governments play a central role in setting curricula and standards. Politics also has a significant influence on how schooling is structured and operated. Depending on the country, the education system can be influenced by different political ideologies, whether it's a free market approach, socialist principles, or capitalism. This political context shapes policies and the overall focus of education. Private schools are a common feature across these systems, providing alternatives to public education and often catering to different social or economic groups. Another key point is that schooling generally occurs in phases or levels, such as primary, secondary, and sometimes tertiary education. These levels help organize learning and ensure students progress through a structured pathway. Looking at the patterns across these education systems, we see some commonalities, like the importance of formal structures, government involvement, and the role of private institutions. All of these elements tie back to the broader theme of how education systems are designed to serve societal needs while reflecting political and economic contexts. Vamos a explorar la formación docente en Suecia. Actualmente, el currículo que se implementa ha estado en marcha durante varios años, consolidándose como un pilar en la educación del país. Este enfoque se basa en la metodología por objetivos, conocida como OBE, que pone énfasis en definir claramente los resultados de aprendizaje y en orientar toda la enseñanza hacia alcanzarlos. Además, el currículo incluye aspectos de contenido y competencias, que aseguran una educación integral. En cuanto a las ratios de profesores y alumnos, Susha mansion un equilibrio que favors la atención personalizada y la calidad educativa. Los recursos en las escuelas, disdain for estructuras hasta materiales didácticos, están bien dotados, reflejando el compromiso del país con una educación de calidad. Hablando de historia, Susha tiene una historia relativamente homogénea, pero también ha tenido que enfrentar y reconocer cualquier pasado de opresión, promoviendo ahora una sociedad inclusiva y respetuosa de la diversidad. Es conocido por su innovación, bienestar social y compromiso con los derechos humanos. En términos lingüísticos, en Susha se hablan varias lenguas, incluyendo suco, inglés y otros idiomas debido a la inmigración. La instrucción escolar generalmente se imparte en suco, pero hay programas en inglés y en otros idiomas para apoyar la multiculturalidad. La educación inclusiva es un pilar fundamental, asegurando que todos los estudiantes, independientemente de sus necesidades, tengan acceso a la enseñanza. Para reflexionar, pensemos en cómo las escuelas sucas promueven no solo conocimientos académicos, sino también valores de igualdad, respeto y diversidad. La forma en que enseñan y los recursos que ofrecen realmente reflejan su compromiso con una educación equitativa y de calidad para todos. Thank you so much for your time and attention today. I truly appreciate the opportunity to share these insights with you. Remember, the key points we've discussed are all about the importance of understanding the core concepts and how they connect to the bigger picture. I hope you found this presentation both informative and inspiring. If you have any questions or want to explore these ideas further, please don't hesitate to reach out. Once again, thank you for being here and for your engagement throughout.